All right, so you're really diving into AI. Like really want to see what it can do, huh? Well, check this out. Google DeepMind just dropped this family of AI models called Gemma.
Yeah, family is a good way to put it. It's not just one thing, right?
Yeah.
More like different sizes of the same model, each one fine-tuned, kind of like a, uh,
Swiss Army knife of AI,
there you go. And get this, they're open source.
which is huge E. I mean, that means it's not locked up in some tech company's, secret lab. Researchers, developers, even someone like you listening in could get their hands on it.
Exactly. Tinker with it, build on it, the whole 9 yards, which, is a huge shift. I mean, if you think about those early days of AI,
Like way back when.
yeah, like the 60s, we're talking programs with names like, let me see, LT, the logic theorist,
Mhm.
GPS, the general problem solver, groundbreaking stuff for their time, no doubt.
Oh, absolutely. Pioneers, those programs were.
But they were like museum pieces,
Mhm.
almost. Not something just anyone could use.
This book excerpt we've got, The Quest for Artificial Intelligence, it really gets into that whole evolution. Like, AI used to be stuck in these ivory towers,
Mm.
only accessible to a select few.
And now you've got Gemma out there in the open. It's like Google saying, here, everyone, come play.
Let's see what amazing things we can cook up together.
Exactly. And it's not just about collaboration either. Open source like this, it could really speed things up, like massively accelerate AI innovation.
Which I'm sure someone like you, always wanting to be on the cutting edge, that's got to be music to your ears, right?
Oh, absolutely. And when you actually look at how Gemma's designed, it's clear Google is going for both power and deep practicality.
They use the terms lightweight and state-of-the-art, which honestly sounds a bit like marketing jargon, but
Sure, sure. But in this case, it actually means something. Lightweight means it's designed to be efficient, you know. Doesn't need a supercomputer to run.
which is huge for accessibility. Not all of us have a server farm lying around just to, mess around with the latest language model.
Exactly. And this whole emphasis on efficiency, on like doing more with less, it's actually rooted in some of the earliest ideas in AI. We've got this paper by Marvin Minsky from, get this, 1961.
1961. Wow. Okay, now that IS going back a bit.
Right. But even back then, Minsky was wrestling with some really fundamental questions about intelligence,
Yeah.
both human and artificial. And one thing that fascinated him was how we use what he called heuristics.
Heuristics, huh?
Yeah, basically mental shortcuts, ways to solve problems quickly without, like, brute forcing your way through every possibility.
So instead of trying every key on the keychain, you're like, okay, which one looks like it's been used the most?
Yeah, you go. Or, like, if you're trying to, I don't know, guess a password, you're not going to just randomly try every letter and number combination, right?
Right. You'd use clues like maybe birthdays, pet names, whatever you know about the person who made the password.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Minsky, he believed that for machines to truly, like, mimic human intelligence, they'd need to master these same kinds of heuristics.
Fascinating. So how does that connect to Gemma? I mean, we've come a long way from basic problem solving to AI that can write poems and compose symphonies and
You're not wrong. Gemma might seem light years ahead of what Minsky was doing, but that core idea, the one about finding efficient ways to solve complex problems, that's something Minsky would absolutely recognize in Gemma's design.
Okay, so it's like this elegant thread connecting the past and present of AI, right? But how does Gemma actually learn? We've got these lecture notes on machine learning, and they mention something called supervised learning.
Ah, yes, supervised learning. It's like, imagine you've got this brilliant student, but instead of textbooks and lectures, you give them data, mountains of it.
Data as their textbook.
Ah,
Interesting.
and the way you organize that data, the examples you feed them, that's what supervises their learning.
Okay, so say we want Gemma to really understand human language, all the nuances, the slang, even sarcasm.
You'd feed it tons and tons of text, exactly. Books, articles, websites, social media posts, you name it.
So it's not just a matter of dumping a bunch of words into Gemma and hoping for the best.
Not at all. It's got to be curated, structured in a way that teaches Gemma the specific patterns and relationships we want it to learn.
So there's an art to it almost, like crafting the perfect curriculum for an AI student.
That's a great way to put it, because ultimately the quality of that data, that curriculum, will determine how well Gemma learns and performs. It's not just about the algorithms, it's about the fuel that powers those algorithms.
Okay, so we've got this powerful, efficient AI model in Gemma. We know it learns through this whole supervised learning thing, gobbling up massive data sets. But what does this all actually mean for, someone like you listening in, someone who wants to grasp the practical side of AI?
Well, the Google DeepMind paper, it really emphasizes Gemma's performance on three key things: language, understanding, reasoning, and importantly, safety. Now let's unpack what that means in practical terms.
Okay, so language understanding, that seems pretty straightforward. But what does that actually look like in action? Like, how is it different from just, looking up words in a dictionary?
Right, right. It's not just about knowing what individual words mean. It's about grasping the whole picture. The
Mhm.
context, the intent, even things like tone.
Okay, so, like, if I tell my AI assistant, hey, I'm totally bummed about missing that concert, it'll know I'm not actually asking for a rain check.
Exactly. It'll understand that bummed means sad in this context, and that the whole thing is an expression of disappointment, not a request for a solution.
Wow, that's impressive. Okay, and then there's reasoning. That one sounds really interesting, a little bit, I don't know, mysterious, maybe.
It's definitely where things start to get really interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it means Gemma can, like, go beyond just pattern recognition, like actually start to make logical connections, deductions.
So instead of just like spitting out the most statistically likely response based on what it's been trained on, it can actually think for itself.
Think is maybe a strong word at this
Hmm.
point, but it's definitely moving in that direction. It's more like it can take the information it has and, connect the dots in a way that makes sense, even if it hasn't seen that exact scenario before.
That's pretty mind-blowing. So what, like instead of just summarizing existing research papers, Gemma could actually analyze the data and propose new hypotheses, new directions for research.
Potentially, yeah. That's the kind of thing we're talking about.
That's wild. Okay, but what about the safety thing? I mean, with all the talk about AI going rogue and all that, that seems pretty crucial.
It's absolutely essential, yeah. And it's not just about preventing some, Hollywood-style AI takeover. It's about making sure these models are used responsibly, ethically, from the ground up.
So like baking in safeguards from the very beginning.
Exactly. And that's actually one of the potential upsides of this whole open source thing with Gemma,
Hmm.
because the code is out in the open, right? It's subject to scrutiny from, like, the entire AI community.
Yeah.
More eyes on the code means more chances to catch potential problems early on.
So it's like a built-in ethics committee, but crowdsourced from the best minds in AI.
Something like that, yeah.
That's reassuring, at least. But even with all those safeguards in place, there are still, some valid concerns, right? Like this excerpt we have from the Quest for Artificial Intelligence, it talks about things like job displacement, misuse by bad actors. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that keeps sci-fi writers up at night.
And it should keep us up at night, too. We can't just bury our heads in the sand and pretend these aren't real issues. But, it's also important to remember that technology itself, it's not inherently good or bad, right?
Hmm.
It's a tool.
Like a hammer. You can build a house with it, or you can.
Exactly. It all depends on who's holding the hammer and what they choose to do with it.
So it's not about like trying to stop AI altogether. It's more about steering it in the right direction, making sure it's used for good.
Exactly. And that's why things like this whole open sourcing of Gemma, it's so important because it's not just about, accelerating innovation. It's about democratizing it.
Democratizing AI, huh? I like the sound of that.
It means giving more people a seat at the table, right?
Yeah.
A chance to shape how this technology is developed and used.
And that includes people like, our listeners, right? I mean, the whole point of these deep dives is to give people the knowledge they need to understand these complex topics so they can participate in those conversations, make their voices heard.
100%. Like they say, knowledge is power. And the more we all understand about AI, the better equipped we'll be to navigate this, this exciting but also kind of scary new world.
For sure. So where do you see all of this going? What's your like big picture take on the future of AI, especially now that we've got these powerful, accessible models like Gemma out in the wild?
Well, it's definitely an exciting time to be involved in this field, that's for sure. I mean, we're on the verge of some uh, truly transformative breakthroughs.
Like what? Give me the good stuff.
Okay, imagine a world where AI is helping us tackle some of the biggest challenges we face, climate change, disease, poverty, inequality.
Those are some pretty lofty goals. You sound optimistic.
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm also realistic, AI isn't some kind of magic bullet. It's not going to solve all our problems overnight. And it comes with its own set of risks and challenges, for sure. But I do believe that if we approach it thoughtfully, ethically, collaboratively.
We can use it to make the world a better place.
Exactly. And honestly, that's a future worth striving for, don't you think?
100%. Okay, but before we get too caught up in the future, Let's zoom back in on Gemma for a bit. We talked about supervised learning, feeding it mountains of data, but how does it actually process all that information? Like, what's going on under the hood?
Ah, that's the million-dollar question, right? And it's a little more complicated than just, computers doing math, although there's a lot of that going on
I
too.
was afraid you were going to say that.
Gemma, like many of the most advanced AIs today, relies on something called a transformer network. It's a specific type of neural network that's, well, particularly good at making sense of large amounts of data.
Okay, transformer network. Try me. What makes it so special?
Imagine, uh, imagine trying to understand a sentence, right? But instead of just reading it word by word, you could grasp the entire thing, the entire context all at once.
Like having a photographic memory for language, but with the ability to like analyze and understand those memories at the same time.
Exactly. That's basically what transformers can do. They can focus on the relationships between words and concepts, even if they're far apart in the text, which is absolutely crucial for things like, language understanding and reasoning.
So that's how Gemma can generate such like coherent and contextually relevant text. It's not just mimicking, it's actually like learning the underlying rules of language.
Precisely. It's like, imagine a chef who can taste a dish and instantly know every single ingredient, their proportions, even the order in which they were added.
Okay, that's actually a really good analogy. But how does all of this make Gemma lightweight? I mean, that doesn't sound very lightweight to me.
That's the real magic of what Google's accomplished here. They've managed to design Gemma's transformer network to be incredibly efficient, both in terms of the computational power it needs and the amount of data it takes to train it.
So it's like they found a way to make that chef work faster with fewer ingredients, but without sacrificing the quality of the final dish.
Exactly. It's a testament to just how far AI research has come.
Okay, that makes sense. But we've been talking about all this data, this fuel that powers Gemma, but we haven't really talked about what that data actually is. We know it's massive,
Yeah.
but what kind of stuff are we talking about?
That's where things get really interesting and where, believe it or not, Minsky's work becomes relevant again. Remember those heuristics we were talking about, those mental shortcuts? Well, one of the biggest breakthroughs in AI research lately has been the realization that so much of human knowledge, it's actually encoded in the way we use language.
So, like the way we structure our sentences, the metaphors we use, the way we connect different ideas, it's all a reflection of how our brains work.
Exactly. And that's where Gemma's training day gets really fascinating. Because it's not just about feeding it raw text, right? It's about finding ways to represent human knowledge, human reasoning in a way that Gemma can understand.
So, we're teaching Gemma to think like us, not by programming it with rules, but by showing it examples of how we think, how we express ourselves.
You've got it. And that brings us back to the heart of this whole deep dive. Remember, you were interested in the practical side of AI, what it can actually do. And with Gemma, we're seeing a glimpse of that potential. An AI that can not only understand and generate human language, but potentially reason, problem solve, even create in ways we're just beginning to imagine.
Whoa, that's a lot to take in. It's exciting, but also kind of intimidating, to be honest.
Yeah, I get that. It's a lot to wrap your head around. But that's the beauty of it, right?
Mm.
There's always more to learn, more to discover. And the more we understand about AI, the better equipped we'll be to navigate this, this incredible ever-changing landscape. But hey, we haven't even touched on that incomplete source yet, that 681668.pdf. Any thoughts on why it seems cut off?
Yeah, it's like, did someone not want us to see the rest of that? Maybe it holds the key to like some even deeper secret about Gemma.
Who knows? Maybe it's a clue, a breadcrumb leading to an even deeper understanding of Gemma and the future of AI.
Ooh, a mystery. Okay, I'm intrigued. But for now, I think we've reached the bottom of our deep dive for today. We've explored the ins and outs of Gemma, from its open source design and impressive capabilities to the fundamental AI concepts that make it all possible.
And we've only just scratched the surface. As these technologies continue to evolve, we can expect even more incredible breakthroughs in the years to come.
Breakthroughs that will undoubtedly raise new questions, new challenges, and new possibilities. But that's the beauty of exploration, isn't it? The journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this thought. What sparks your curiosity about AI? What possibilities capture your imagination? Because the future of AI isn't something that's being decided in some far-off lab. It's being shaped right now by all of us through the questions we ask, the choices we make, and the ways we choose to engage with this powerful technology. It's like, we've done a deep dive into the deep dive,
It's AI,
Yeah,
right?
duh.
Always more to uncover. That's part of what makes it so exciting.
Totally. But I think what's really cool is that it's not just like theoretical anymore. It's not just happening in labs. It's something that anyone can, potentially
Right,
use.
exactly. We're starting to see AI become much more accessible, which is huge.
And that's where Gemma comes in. This isn't just some like research project gathering dust on a shelf. This is a tool that has the potential to really shake things up. How we work, how we learn, how we create.
And it gets even more interesting when you think about how we interact with technology now, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's also literal. We type commands, we click buttons.
Plug and click. Yeah.
Exactly. But with AI like Gemma, we're moving towards a more intuitive, more conversational way of interacting with machines.
So instead of spending like an hour trying to figure out the right keywords to type into a search engine,
Uh,
you just talk to your computer like it's another person.
that's the idea. Just
Mm.
tell it what you want, what you need help with, and it actually gets it. No more trying to, like, translate your thoughts into this weird robotic language that the computer can understand.
Now, that would be amazing, though I have a feeling I'd still end up arguing with my computer sometimes. Old habits die hard.
Well, maybe. But with the kind of language understanding and reasoning abilities that Gemma is showing, we're getting closer. It's not just about automating tasks anymore. It's about actually augmenting human capabilities.
Okay, yeah, I like that. Instead of replacing us, AI becomes more like a partner, a collaborator.
Precisely.
This is all super exciting, but I gotta be honest, it's also a little intimidating. Like, what would you say to someone listening who's like, this is amazing, but I have no idea how any of it works? Where do I even start?
I say, first of all, don't panic. None of
Yeah,
us have all the answers, right?
right.
This is a field that's constantly evolving, and we're all learning as we go. The important thing is stay curious, stay engaged, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
So you don't need to go out and get a degree in computer science to, like, wrap your head around AI.
No, not at all. There are so many resources available now, whether it's online courses, books, podcasts like this one. The information is out there. The key is to find what works for you and just dive in.
Be a lifelong learner, right?
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to encourage with these deep dives. We're taking these complex topics, breaking them down into bite-sized pieces, and hopefully making them a little less intimidating for everyone.
Well, mission accomplished, I'd say. We've covered a ton of ground today. The open source nature of Gemma, those early AI programs, supervised learning, transformer networks.
And we even delved into some of the ethical and societal implications of this technology, which are super important to consider.
Right, because at the end of the day, this isn't just about lines of code or algorithms. It's about how we as humans choose to use these powerful tools.
100%. And that's a conversation that everyone needs to be a part of.
Well said. Well, I think that about wraps it up for this deep dive. We've explored the ins and outs of Gemma, Google's latest and greatest AI model.
From its humble beginnings as an idea to its potential to revolutionize, well, pretty much everything.
It's been quite a ride. And on that note, we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Gemma and the future of AI? What possibilities excite you? What concerns do you have? Join the conversation online using the hashtag Gemma Deep Dive.
And who knows, maybe we'll even feature some of your thoughts in a future episode. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those big, important questions.